Look at the clubs, and I don't want to be rude to any here, but if you went through the process that we went through, what Lord Jonathan Kane oversaw for us to take Toronto's place, if you did that with the 12 current Super League clubs and all those clubs that applied for that, possibly more, are the 12 best clubs in this country in Super League now? My answer to that would be
The Duckhouse Rugby Show is proudly sponsored by Autism Friendly Caravans Blackpool, where every day there is a new adventure. Thanks for joining us this week on the Duckhouse Rugby Show. Today, Dave and myself are joined by Leigh Centurions club owner. It's Mr. Derek Beaumont. Derek, thanks for coming on the show.
Hi again, Dave and Keith. How are we doing?
How are we?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Still alive, still avoiding wasps.
Stay away from the wasps.
Yeah, stay clear of them. Stay clear. We want to chat about the structure of rugby league. It's been a much discussed topic over the past, several years actually, but it's raising its head again more recently. There's been talk of going back to 14 teams, going down to 2 leagues of 10. Marty Sadler, who we've had on the show in the past, has spoke about having conferences like an NFL model. And I've pushed for a 2 conferences of 10 structure where each team's loop fixture would be against the other 10's conference. So there's many ideas out there and thoughts. We wondered what you'd heard, what you're thinking of, what would suit rugby league in your thoughts.
I've probably changed my thought process from where it was. So I'll tell you what I thought when I was in Super League was that we all want to see competitive games, don't we? At the end of the day, that's the thing. You know, it's not great spectacle watching 60-0 or, I mean, I was at Wakefield, Salford yesterday, 76-10. It's nice if you're a Salford fan for some of it, but then you don't want to see it all the time. There's some nice tries and that, it's flamboyant, it's good, but we want to see competitive games. So I was always against the 14 or 16 or whatever league, because your top end to your bottom, too big of a gulf, because we can only all work with the players. Ultimately, they're the product of and the asset. Therefore, I was a firm pusher of getting to 2 full-time professional divisions of 10, because the big problem. So I've got into Super League by both routes. 3 routes. The conventional way of winning a grand final, how it is now, and being promoted when we beat Whitehaven. We couldn't recruit anybody until we'd won that game. It was close all through the season. And it was 16 all full time at Widnes. Extra time, we won it 32-16 and got promoted. And we didn't really compete, truth be told, in the 2005 season, and came straight back down. And literally addending it in the middle eights, which was a better format, I felt, insofar as you already had to be able to beat Super League sides to get up, and that stacked up because we didn't finish bottom, we finished next bottom, but went out by the same method in the middle eights. And the difficulty with that was when you were sat in Super League, was it meant 4 teams were struggling with whether or not they could do the recruitment because they didn't know. You couldn't be sure. There was always risk that needed underpinning. So every aspect kind of as in life, it's fors and against. So the big issue is when you get relegated, you get a smaller parachute payment, but it's significantly different. It does create an unfair advantage on the championship clubs unless they've got a benefactor, because you're coming down with more money. So back in those days, Salford down, straight back up, Huddersfield down, straight back up as full time. So it causes disparity in that division, because you essentially have a Super League side competing in the championship, just winning everybody, and it doesn't serve a purpose. and it's too big of a cliff face, too destructive to the business, all the contracts have to be, can be finished like we did. So it's not healthy for players as well. So all of those aspects don't look great. So you're left then thinking, well, do we have a competition that's got no promotion and relegation, and then that doesn't happen, which I'm not a fan of, because you need to be able to elevate yourself and have aspirations. So then you look at it and you think, well, if we've got and these are not defined figures, but say, for example, we had a Super League 1 where they got 1.5 million and Super League 2, they got 1 million. So the cliff face isn't as big. And there's maybe a 250K difference in the parachute. So as it softens it, and you don't have to get rid of contracts and stuff. You could even say to your players, if you're in Super League 1, you're on that much. If we get relegated to 2, you're on that much. So they know what they're buying into.
Yeah.
And then that way we could grow the game. You have automatic promotion and relegation. You could maybe have a jeopardy buy next to bottom plays next to top in a one-off game, just to give it an outside chance. It's not a big gulf. And then your third division under that would be your part-time division, but there'd be a route to grow from that into the bigger one and a parachute for going down to protect it. And then we've got a broader coverage, because if you look at the clubs, and I don't want to be rude to any here, but if you went through the process that we went through, what Lord Jonathan Kane oversaw for us to take Toronto's place, if you did that with the 12 current Super League clubs and all those clubs that applied for that, possibly more, are the 12 best clubs in this country in Super League now? My answer to that would be no, they're not. Simply because Leigh aren't in it for one. But if you're going off facilities and what we want to look like and locations that some people are fans of, I'm quite comfortable with the fact that it's a Northern Corridor sport. I've spoke that openly that I don't see the value of French clubs in our current competition and format, because commercially Sky can't sell dishes over there or subscriptions, and they're the biggest investor currently. Fred has to have his logo covered up because they can't advertise over there. We spend a fortune travelling over there and then travelling over here from out of the game. Our fans save up to go over there, which is their money for them to do. But are they missing out on events like Challenge Cup Final, like Magic Weekend, because they're using for that weekend away instead of a weekend at Magic? And there's the fact that there's no commercial income into the clubs from away support and secondary spend from away supporters, which, whether you want to tell people to grow their own crowds is one thing, but the atmosphere within a stadium is created from opposing fans singing and chanting at each other and creating an atmosphere, and that adds to the whole experience of the game. So that's why I'm not a big fan of that. So having come out of Super League and got back into the Championship, and again, I don't want to be disrespectful to any Championship teams here, and Batley have proved it wrong a little bit of what I'm going to say, because they beat Fev yesterday, which was obviously, they drew with them at their place, so they probably fancied it, and fair play to them. But other than that, as much as we beat Featherstone in the Cup and then at home reasonably well when we've got our team together, we didn't have it in round 2, and it was different conditions and so on. So we kind of knew where we were going with it. We've been beating teams quite comprehensively. Barrow away after the Cup win with an hangover is the blip. Featherstone would take away the Batley situation, have been putting significant points on people. So I'm not seeing the value in that. And I'm not seeing how that's any good for the other clubs that are in there who could be competitive in their own right, because you look at, York, Newcastle, Halifax, Widnes, Bradford. There's some big club names in there, isn't there?
Potential. What's the potential with those clubs?
Yeah, exactly. But the thing that's missing is money. Yeah. Now the biggest thing, the thing that's missing more than that, but money would reduce how much more that's missing by, is number of players, of quality players in the competition. So where my mind's now at is I've changed, because I don't think we have enough players to have 2 10s that would be competitive all the way down. So, for example, if let's just say we took the bottom 2 as they currently stand, Wakefield and Toulouse, out of Super League and put them into the current championship, you'd have Leigh, Featherstone, Toulouse and Wakefield having a ding-dong with each other, and the rest would just all get what's going on at the moment, big score lines on, and have no hope of playing for anything or getting promoted. So there's nothing for everybody to play for, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And that's an inherent problem in Super League a little bit, with the same teams. There's only however many teams ever won it, so 4 teams. So again, there's shake-ups and these conference things that get talked about. So currently what I see is, unless we make a change to the number of players that can come in as imports, like in the championship, you can have as many as you want. I think that should be increased in Super League as well. Now, people will say, I'll say that because I've got too many for going up next year. It's not. That's not what it's about. If you're going to transit from a competition where you can have more anyway into one where you can have less, doesn't really sit right, because you've got to change your ethos of what you've got. But we're working with that anyway, and that it's not going to change straight away now. But if you want to get to 2 10s, why don't we want the other Edwin Ipapis that are over in PNG and in Fiji and wherever? We don't care in football where the players come from. We just want the best players in the world in the Premier League, so it attracts the attention. We want the best players in the world in Super League 1 and Super League 2. So if we don't currently have them, we can grow our youth structures and we can coach and we can do whatever. But the game needs to become more attractive now to attract more youngsters into it. It needs to have more money to pay bigger contracts out, so as it becomes, it's never going to compete with football, but it becomes more competitive where there's a significant income from it for what you do to yourself. So it's which process you put in first. So I don't currently think we could go to 2 10s successfully now. I think we need to work towards doing that. I think that's the long-term thing for me.
Yeah.
Where we go, because we cover a bigger geographical area, and there's some big clubs there that miss out. We've not necessarily got the best 12 facilities, etc. there. So I would think it would be better to go to 14 at the moment. I'd be interested to see what IMG see of the French aspect, because I've set out what's there. So apart from a good day out, I don't see any value. There's no TV deal from them. So I, as a businessman successful in what I do, which isn't what IMG do, I commercially wouldn't see any value in that. Yeah. I might also come in here, if I didn't know about rugby, IMG might walk in and say, why is there 2 clubs in Hull? Why is that not just 1? Why is Wigan and Leigh? That should just be Wigan. Why is there Fed, Wakey and Cass? We should have a Newcastle, we should have a Cumbria, and we should have a London. But that's not how the game works, and there is room for 2 clubs in Hull, and they both get well supported, and Leigh and Wigan, Cass, Fed, Wakey, so on. So it can't just be looked at purely commercially. So I might be missing something on the French thing, and these guys might say, yeah, but what we should do is this. I think what they should do is build their own competition to a Super League standard. And then, at the end of the year, we can meet and you can have NRL, French, English, Tongan, whatever, PNG.
World Club Championship then, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly, that kind of thing. And then 14 teams, you could argue, if you've not got 2 French teams, so you're taking 4 teams now out of the Championship into Super League, you're getting rid of the loop fixture. And, you've got a different situation. But I do think to deal with this, unless you've got no cliff face, less of a cliff face, and a professional setup underneath it, then I do think it needs to be where you've got some surety when you're in there, so that you're not starting off your season like some teams are, recruiting to not get relegated and putting everything into that playing pot. because you can't spend money on saying, well, let's put some LED boards in our stadium and then that will generate us more income over more years, and not go mad on players. And we might not finish 7th, we might finish bottom, but we're not going to lose our place. But then we'll have more income over more years from spending that money wisely in that particular year, and people can make improvements to the stadium.
Yeah.
But then that prevents somebody being promoted from that platform and point. But if we analyse what we've really got, let's just say we did do that. Let's just say that at the end of this season, we took Featherstone, and I think they deserve a go. I do. Mark Campbell's, he's been around there. He knows his rugby. He's put his money in, and up until 2013, when I got back in Leigh, they was the top team. They was winning it every year, and when they couldn't go up. And then as soon as there was an opportunity to go up, I've come in and kind of took it off them. Then when I've gone out the way, Toronto has been in the way, and then OKR, then it's Toulouse has got in the way, and now it's back with Leigh. And I'd be interested to see what they could become if they had an opportunity of it. So if you took Fev and Leigh and put them up now, what's left behind there then? Is anybody going to are any of those clubs that are left there, unless somebody comes in and invests in them, going to put a team in like what Leigh's got in the Championship or what Featherstone's got in the Championship? Because if they were, they'd be doing it now, but they can't. That's not disrespectful to them. That's just because they've not got a benefactor.
Yeah.
Clearly, someone's putting money in at Fev this year, more so. I'm open about what I'm putting in, £750,000 into Leigh in a year to do what we're doing. So unless somebody comes along and does that, it doesn't happen. So therefore, the sport has to look at growing to be able to those clubs be provided with the relevant income without a benefactor, so that the whole sport gets better commercial value, better TV deals, sponsorship, etc., so that it can fund those clubs in a manner that they can compete, and we can have these 210s.
It needs the acknowledgement for the betterment, like you say there, Derek. They need to support the vision, like you said, that you and Featherstone have got. And yeah, we'll bring you in, we'll nurture it. It might take you 1 season, 2 seasons to find your feet, but after that, that'll be very, very competitive. And the difference with football and Premier League is, let's say Everton had gone down this season. I know you're an Evertonian, Dave. I do apologise. But let's say they had. That wouldn't be the end of Everton. They would be able to come back just as strong in a season. Whereas in Rugby League, that's not. You put all your money in the bank for that season. It doesn't work out. You get relegated. That's a big hit that you've got to take. And again, no matter how sustainable you are, that is still that's a massive impact on you, isn't it?
Yeah, it's significant, and for a lot of clubs they can't recover from it. And even in Super League, you look at the clubs there, and largely the success is coming from benefactors putting money in. You look at Warrington with Simon and Stewart there, and Wigan with Ian, and so it goes Marlon with what he did in his days at Salford. To what Salford are doing now.
Yeah.
From them, but when he left, he made a grand final and he made a Challenge Cup final. But in terms of getting support, it still isn't, quite there for them, despite having success and bringing in big signings and stuff. So we need. This is why IMG is so important in the frame. You said at the beginning, what do I know? What I do know is that there's a consultation process going on at the moment. And the next meeting that Championship clubs are at, we get our opportunity to speak to them and all give our views of what's right, wrong with the game, what can be done, what can be changed. And I think a big part is, and structure is one of those things that they're significantly looking at. And whatever that is that they think it should be, would be from 2024. So that's what's being looked at. So whether or not we'll see a change quicker than that, i.e. at the end of this year or not, I'm not so sure. But there's a good consultation process taking place where everybody, like a root and branch analysis. In my mind's eye, the important part of them doing that is the governing body, which I know they are, because one of the things they put up on the presentation was something they'd done in China with table tennis, which they'd made much more significantly were, if you will, and better financially, because ultimately that's what it boils down to. So these people are highly skilled, global business with all arms and hands in different parts of the country, in the UFC, all different aspects, streaming. They've got all these components to this big business. So when I talked about our operational board being a big part of what goes on at the club and doesn't cost any money, we've just acquired a magnificent talent, wealth of talent to advise and help grow our sport with a proven track record, albeit in other sports and the link to rugby, that's costing us nothing until they make us something. So it's like a commission-only salesperson. They're not on your wage bill until they bring you some business. So the more you pay them, the happier you are, because the more you're making out of it. So it's an absolute success story from the RFL and the Super League.
It's a fantastic prospect what they bring to the table.
Yeah, it is. And the thing that struck out to me on the table tennis scenario was there was a line on there that they put where they felt that the governing body of the Table Tennis Federation, some of its rules, or I can't remember exactly specifically what it said, were restrictive to the commercial growth of the game. And that was addressed, and the governing body addressed that so that it could progress. And I think the RFL are also open-minded in that regard as well, certainly as a board, Ralph and Karen, etc. That if things need to change, then they will, and that could even be how we're linked with Australia and following their rules. Because I think we need to change some of our rules in our game. If we want to improve it, the biggest thing that we all complain about is the refs. Everybody's moaning about the refs, and it's interesting because if I watch a game that doesn't involve my team, I don't think the ref has that much of a bad or good game as I do when it's my team. Yeah, we're all the same, and ultimately they make mistakes just like our players. I know some of them, and they go on that field. They want to do their best. They want to be accountable for their performance, and they've had a good one. And they make errors. They're thinking quick, and it's a tough job.
Over 2,500 decisions within a game, isn't it? 250 play of the balls, and how many decisions are made at that play of the ball? We had it with Ian Smith,
Straight away from the kickoff, is everybody behind the ball? Has he caught it clean? Is the tackle high? Is it okay? Is it a chop? Is it a slow rock, so it's a six again? Has he played the ball properly? Has he picked it up clean? Has he passed it backwards when he's caught it? Was everybody onside when he played the ball? That's in the first kick and first 5 seconds of
15 decisions in the first 5 seconds.
Yeah, and they're going to get something wrong. But where I think that we stigmatise referees or where we have our beef with them is because, for example, rugby's so much territorial because we're only getting the ball for 6 sets. Yeah. So if a referee gives an offside on play 5, right, coming out of yardage, you get to kick 30 metres out of them, go to good ball with 6 new tackles. Now, should that be as serious of a consequence for somebody being half a metre in front, which probably was on the play before and the play before that, but just didn't get blown up, right? But he can show he's offside. Should that have the same significance as somebody who runs up in and blatantly whacks someone round the Swede with an high tackle that takes them off the pitch for an HIA? And the consequence is exactly the same. So for me, how I would address where that has less of an impact is those kind of penalties, headshots and foul play, 100%. You kick them into touch and you get another 6 tackles, no matter what you're on. Something like offside, why don't we just move to where the player was offside and it's now the same tackle? So if I'm on play 3 and you're offside, we go and take the 10 off you and we're still on play 3. If you keep doing it, we're under your sticks. So there's no benefit to being offside
Yeah, a neutral tackle, it's still play 3. You can just carry
Don't
on.
play 3. Yeah.
Rather than 6 again, which is a big chunk, it's just a neutral tackle. Yeah, I've thought the same on a few of the rules. There could be neutral tackles. I think sometimes if you kick the ball and someone's charged it down, you collect it. You've got your setback, but you've been punished for charging down, which seems unfair. Yeah. So I thought if that could just be the neutral tackle, so it's still 5th again, and you get to play 5th again. So I'm with you on that we don't help our referees with the rules. I suppose years ago when it was just 5 metres and you couldn't trudge all the way upfield on a set very often, a penalty wasn't as big as it is now. You kick for touch, as you say, you get a new set in good territory. It's a massive consequence for something that could be just half a yard. And that's tough on the referees, and people get frustrated with them. If you've seen our shows before or my posts, we've been quite supportive of referees trying to give a balance and make a lot of fans realise, as you've rightly pointed out, how many decisions that they've got to make. But I suppose back to the structure point, you've given me a great insight there and made me think again on some things. But I wanted to challenge you on a couple of your points, Derek, to see where your thoughts are. Not enough talent. I'd argue there is. I go down to amateur rugby league. I've been down Leigh quite often. A brilliant amateur setup at Leigh. St Helens has several clubs. Wigan have got numerous clubs. Yorkshire, Cumbria, hotbeds of amateur rugby league. Loads of fantastic players at 8, 9, 10. By the time they're 14, they start to drift away with the scholarships. If they don't get picked up, then they start to drift away. Not all clubs have academies. The academy structure is you can recruit at 14. Any team can recruit from anywhere. So your top teams end up getting the first draft. That's how I see it. If yourself or Halifax or Rochdale, all these other clubs who've got community academies set up and wanted to compete with Saints, Wigan and Leeds, you'd struggle because you wouldn't get first draft, but it would cost you the same money to run. So I think if we could somehow even that out a little bit, and it's an evening out of talent. It's not, we could put 30 clubs together. If you even the talent out across those 30 clubs, they'd all be competitive games. And I'd argue it's not just quality that leads to excitement. I've been down to Piltrex. We were down there, weren't we, a few weeks ago, watching them against Siddle. Absolutely brilliant game. I really enjoyed it. Some good quality, great game. They're not professional athletes, but it still had the same excitement. We can have Leigh v Saints, Leigh v Leeds with an evening out of talent, maybe not the big superstars from abroad, but still just be as exciting. You've got that tribalism from the fans. So I feel as though we could change some of the structures, bring from some of our own through, try and even out that talent, and potentially reconsider that 210s that you did favour, but now probably don't favour.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we do grassroots. My niece has gone back playing. We've just been running a programme at Bolton School where they play union, trying to get a league team going in there. They've had 200 kids attending that. We've done 4 1-days. Been there tonight for the last one before the break up. And we've got great amateur clubs in our time. But when we put together our academy bid, there was a question that stood out what I put in it, which was, I think there was something like 200 kids taken into the scholarships and then 2 signed, made it. And I said, well, there's 2 things there. Either A, your talent spotters don't know what they're doing because they're picking people that can't make it, or the coaches that are taking them aren't doing right because they're then not making it. So, and what the problem creates with that is that they've gone around school. I've got a scholarship at Saints. I'm on at Saints, and then they don't make it. So then they just feel embarrassed and they failed, and they go away from the game and they don't feed and entertain back into it, which is another thing that's a problem. And then the whole academy thing is a problem. Wigan, Saints, Warrington, Leeds, they all run and the whole clubs, they all run their academies far more advanced, like you just said, than what Leigh could if it established one. But you can only compete with that when you're in Super League, and it's a Super League set up and it's a Superleague environment they're coming in, because every kid, if I'm bringing my kid, he's 12 now, he's pretty decent. If he's 14 and this club's interested in him, then irrespective of, you're going to go where he's going to get the best opportunity to become the best version of himself he can be.
Yes.
Not just going to go to Leigh because we live in Leigh and we support Leigh. Alfie Maiden, who's one of the best staff backs in the game at his age at the moment, he's just gone to Saints. Wigan wanted him, Warrington wanted him, they all wanted him, and he supports Wigan after Leigh, but he's gone to St Helens because of what he got shown and what he thought that his dad did and everything, that was right for him. So I think at the moment, when you put more money into the game, you end up paying players who are part-time. Some of them don't want to go full-time because they've got a 30, 40 grand job and a 25 grand rugby contract, but they're not a 65 grand player. So, and I've experienced that many a time. So there's those issues as well. And I get what you say about entertainment and so on and so forth. But when you watch State of Origin or you watch some of the top NRL games, pains to say, but it's a better watching it. Yeah. It's a better product. So ultimately, we need to have the best product, the best version of what we can in here. That's my way of seeing it. And I just think that we can grow more players and more talent and get more people interested in playing it and staying in with the game if we make it better first by having more stars. We don't have stars, do we? I remember it was a guy, Barry Earn, and when he, pinch of salt with some of it, but he was right when he said, who do we know? We spoke before, Ellery Hanley, Martin Afire, Andy Gregg, people, like that. I know players in our division that are Lightning, do Bevan French, Highfield going there, or Wellesby at Saints. There's just Pappy at our place is electric to watch it. But we don't really champion and have a profile raised that kids buy into. Blake Ferguson is, the kid. Everyone's like, wow, it's massive. But for some reason, as a sport, some of our journalists and stuff, they'll focus on the bad things that the guys had go on in his life, rather than how big of a signing it is to have a superstar in the Championship doing a backflip in front of the North Stand after he's just scored an hat-trick in 25 minutes on his debut. Let's promote that. Let's make him a superstar.
Rugby players are very humble now. They don't want to sort of stand out and be putting themselves out there. They're very humble and hard-working. That's the type of people they are. But that doesn't help the sport then when they want to make superstars of them. You want a few to be a bit loud, a bit brash, to do those things, the somersaults, running up into the crowd, like fooey, moi. Those type of things attract people and make names out of them. So I'm with you there. We definitely need to do more of that. I guess it comes down to a business model being the top down, which is kind of the way you're kind of looking at it, bringing in the top talent, making it as best as it can be. The Premier League did it that way. Or a bottom up where you grow it wider and try and bring all the clubs up at the same time. And I think I see the benefits of both. Whatever structure any of us dream up, we can give some positives for, or we can give negatives for. There's no perfect structure.
100%. I mean, the bit that add substance or carried the most weight with me, what you said was that you would, if the money exists across it, you would get a better spread of the talent. So you would get more competitiveness if there's not only Saints can compete for those particular players, and then so some of the players that you would have who were fringe wouldn't sign there on that because they'd go and play at Halifax because they've got a better budget and so on. So it would spread a bit further, and there is an argument then that 210s can work because you've not got 25 great players, you've got 17 and then 8 pinning it up, and they've got the 8 that you've took goes in with their team and makes it better. So it could be that happened, but the thing that has to come is the money. So how do we IMG's job is how do we get the money? We fell down significantly on our broadcast deal from last time round. We've not changed anything since Sky said to us, those words, change or die. We haven't changed anything. You know, we need to get a message out of what we need to decide what our sport is, what our structure is, what our USPs are, and then be able to take it to market and say, right, this is what it's going to be. And you know, Martin Sadler's thing.
My 6 times 6 is the solution, in my opinion. And you know, I think in the long term, I would banish any talk of promotion and relegation in rugby league. Totally off the table, as far as I'm concerned. But having said that, we've got to have a structure that includes all the clubs. It can't just be the top 10 or the top 12 or even the top 16.
Nigel Wood's a big advocate and spoke to me about it, of having this conference of, you know, Lancashire, one of Yorkshire, you loop, like you said, back in it, and then you play your semi-finals and finals from it. And, you know, it's all, I think they all need chucking in the melting pot and talking about the pros and the cons, and then look at things that arguably do work. You know, your Magic Weekend, your Summer Bash. Why don't we do you know, we've got to protect our English international team. So we just had that window there where we've had All Stars England, you know, Lancashire, Yorkshire War of the Roses stuff back. I don't know why that disappeared. Yeah, you know, things like that. But why don't we have a sevens weekend like you do Magic, and your Championship and Super League can both come together in it and play it over a weekend, getting on TV.
I'd love that. I think there's some brilliant ideas, and as you say, if we can get those in the melting pot, I'll throw another one then. How about central contracts, a bit like the IPL cricket or England cricket, where the people who are funding it pay the players direct, and then there's maybe a draft for those players each year, where if you've got 20 centrally contracted players, each team gets 2, and the bottom team gets to bid for the first one. But they don't pay them direct, it's paid that out of the pot. That's about spreading the talent now, I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think in terms of youth, I think that should probably be centrally controlled. We've regionalised, you know, rather than clubs having their own academies, there should be regional centres of excellence.
Centre of excellence, don't there? There was like Leigh Carnegie Centre of Excellence as well. I remember like when Craig was playing, he used to go up to that Centre of Excellence up that way.
Yeah, and that could be where then the clubs pick out from those talent paths pools, rather than clubs having them, you know, and other clubs not being allowed to have them. But I mean, there was a period where there were some central contracts, weren't there? I think, Jake, from some of the England players to keep them in our game rather than go to the NRL. To top them up.
I think there was rumours he had some, like a contract. There may have been some other players when Welsh Rugby Union were interested in him.
Yeah, but you know, it's a tough one because they'll always come and try and take our best players. They've got bigger salary caps to spend. They can offer more money. And then there's the culture of the way of life as well. You know, so I just think it's a tough gig all round, and whatever way they go with it, there'll be people for and people against. That's for sure. But if we're going to grow the game and the sport, then we have to have more clubs competing at a higher level, covering a bigger geographical area. In terms of sponsorship and how it's all attracted. I personally think where I think the bigger money ought to be is, I think we need to get where all our clubs have the ability to stream every game live, to where you can subscribe to it. I think, you know, if you look at, and this is in no way intended to be derogatory towards Sky whatsoever, because without the investment in our sport over the last however many years, it wouldn't be what it is, the full-time sport that it is, that's for sure. Yeah. But the negative side of that is that's kept it relatively in the dark. So, you know, you're getting 300,000 watching, whereas if it's on BBC, you get 2 million watching. So BBC won't obviously pay the money that Sky will pay, so it naturally goes to Sky. So we've actually had less exposure as a consequence. So I think the key to it is to try and spread ourselves across, get a good broadcast income from Sky and give them a portion of it, and then something free to air to Channel 4 that gets the exposure, and then be able to keep the games. So like this time, the Championship, and you can use your other league or whatever model or platform it is, which I think IMG will be good at, to actually be able to choose and pick your games. I would have watched Fev and Batley yesterday on for a fiver or something. I'm sure there'd be games you would watch in the Championship as well as Saints fans.
I mean, you could have something like you say, when you talk about the UFC with IMG, they've got like the UFC Fight Pass, where you pay. Not only do you get all UFC contact, you get I think Strikeforce 1 and a few other MMA affiliated outlets, and promotions put their stuff on there as well. So you've got that, you pay a monthly subscription, but you've got access to all that content. So as a fan, it's all in one place. It's all there, and then that money then gets distributed out, back out to the clubs, or is apportioned to whatever.
Yeah, and you can monetize those things as well. You see it in other countries with stuff coming across the bottom of the screen. When they go to the screen, you can they do it in the NRL, McDonald's or KFC or whatever comes up. So you could do that at a smaller club level as well on each thing that's going on there. We're always thinking, that'll damage the gate, that'll knock spectators off coming. Yeah, it will, but there's a lot. If we look at a lot of the younger generations now, they're not interested in a full game. They just want the bits. My lad, when he's watching football, he's on his stuff, and then he's just watching the bits that matter. He'll get up in the morning if he's not been able to stay up, and he'll just watch the controversial decisions and the goals and the big saves and the misses. And it's 15 minutes what took 90, and all this going and travelling and paying. So you've got to change it so that it's not just the game of rugby that you're going to see. It's the interaction with the players after. It's some kind of entertainment. It's the atmosphere of a full stadium and the singing and the fireworks. It's creating an event that's not only the rugby. So even if your team loses, you've gone away and you've had a good night. You've had a good event.
Yeah, more carnival type.
Ladies and gents, this is the moment you've waited for.
There's more to it than just the game, and it's more rewarding and enjoyable. Not just watching the game. I think things like, look at Test match cricket. I mean, people don't sit there for 8 hours just watching every single ball. They're enjoying, they're having a few beers, they're chatting, they're enjoying the atmosphere. There's so much more goes on, and I think a lot of other sports have done that very well, and I suppose Rugby League can learn from that and roll that into their own sport, bite-sized chunks, selling it through media, selling different experiences on game day, and all of that is in the melting pot that you're discussing. And I don't envy the people who are going to have to come up with the future structure for Rugby League and to get the best out of this great sport.
Fresh eyes. I always think when, if somebody comes into my business, you get blinkered by what you're doing, what you've always done, what you've always known. And if somebody comes in with fresh eyes, there's no doubt about it, they'll see things differently and improve things. And I could go to their business that they're in, and they've just improved mine, and I could go to theirs and come up with things and improve theirs. So I think they're a great wealth of talent. I think the RFL's got an open mind. Superleague have got an open mind. Our biggest asset in this game is its spectators, whether the ones that come and sit on seats in the stands or stand on the terraces or watch on Sky or Channel 4 or whatever it is. That's what it's about, and that's what needs to be grown. And that they're a key part of who IMG need to also embrace and talk to.
Yeah. Well, on the topic of structure and change, I've had a bit of a think, Dave. Thanks for tuning in to the Dockhouse Footy Show with Derek Beaumont, Big Dave, and me, Kez, for some Monday night rugby league.
This is the greatest show!
I think it'll work, Dave. I think it's got legs.